Welcome to Write to Publish, your go-to podcast for all things writing and publishing. I'm Karen Stanley, a 14 times published author and the founder of Mabel and Stanley Publishing. Join me as I share a multitude of tips and insights drawn from my own writing and publishing journey. We'll be hearing from some inspirational authors too, who will share their writing experiences and top tips for success. Each week, we'll learn about an aspect of writing, from composition to genre and from publishing to marketing. Listen in as we learn and chat about all things writing and publishing, and let's get you on the right path.
Hello and welcome to another episode of Write to Publish with me, Karen Stanley, your hostess with the mostest, I hope. So today we're going to talk about the highs and lows of self-publishing, because let me tell you, writing and publishing a book is an emotional roller coaster ride, pretty much whether you do it self-publish or trad. To be fair, traditional can be just as stressful, but self-publishing, one of the main things about that is you're on your own. You've got to find out everything yourself. You've got to do everything yourself. You've got to learn everything yourself. You've got to create everything yourself. So it can be quite a tricky deal, and it can be quite lonely. It can make you feel a little bit lonely. So let's talk about the highs first of all. One of the biggest highs is the creative freedom. It's your book. You get to do it your way. So if you want to write a supernatural gothic romance set in Egyptian times, I don't know, 2000 BC, you absolutely can. Whether it's going to sell or not, whether you're going to have success from that or not, or whether it's going to be something that the market wants or not, is another matter entirely. And that's kind of for another episode. But you do have creative freedom, all joking aside. I have a friend who writes historical fiction, and she's written a work of historical fiction about a witch that lived in the Tower of London. She's done loads and loads and loads of volunteering at the Tower. She's got a PhD in history. She knows what she's talking about. And she was told by an agent that her book was too historic. It was too focused on the Tower, and it was a bit too witchy, if you like. Lots of feedback she was given about how her book was a little bit too much with regards to the historical element. And all of the historical element was true. She just kind of rejigged it and tweaked it for fictional purposes, and she's had great reviews for her book, and people have loved it, and readers of historical fiction have loved it. So it just goes to show that even if you get an opinion from an agent or from a traditional publisher, it's a very subjective thing. Not everybody's going to be right all the time, and their agenda will be slightly different. So when you self-publish your own book, you do have creative freedom. You can create your book your way. This doesn't mean that you always should, but you get to know how it looks. You get to know what you want the front cover to look like. You get to know how you get to control how it's formatted or what it looks like, or the plot twists or the story arc. It's all down to you. So you have complete control over that creatively. And that's really a lovely feeling. I mean, you could get a traditional publishing deal, for example, and they could come back to you with feedback based on what they want, what their agenda is for marketing, and you could almost start to feel like you don't recognize your own book, which is a bit of a shame, and people can find that quite frustrating. So actually that creative freedom can be really wonderful. I'm just looking at my notes here, because the other thing I looked at was speed. I mean, if you get a traditional publishing deal, that's not a guarantee that you're going to get published within any particular unit of time. So for example, a traditional publisher could take your book on and say, yeah, we like it, we're going to publish it. Then you've got to go through all of their editors, their designers, their marketers, all of the people in their team will have a say, going back to our point about creative freedom. But all of that takes time, and sometimes they could put your book to the bottom of a pile and it doesn't even get done for another year, maybe 2 years, because they haven't got time, or they're working to sort of different time frames. So it can take a really long time to get your book published, even if you do get a traditional deal. And that's even if you get a traditional deal, that can sometimes take months or even years, and sometimes it doesn't happen at all. So with self-publishing, you've really got control over the time. I would say from the moment of writing your book, if you're going to do it properly, and I would never advocate publishing a book any which way that isn't done properly or professionally. Once you get to that, I've written my first draft, once you go through the editing, the formatting, the uploading, you're probably looking depending on your level of expertise, depending on how much help you need, 2 to 4 months. So it's pretty quick. Whereas with traditional publishers, it can take much longer than that, sometimes years. And again, that's assuming that you even get a deal in the first place. So, it's a much quicker turnaround, particularly if you're thinking about a business book. If that's part of your strategy for your business and part of your marketing, part of your funnel, part of your kind of business operation, if you like, and you want to time that with whatever kind of strategy you've got going on, you've got a lot more control over that and a lot more ways in which you can make sure that that book is out at a time to suit your agenda and to suit your strategy. So the speed is a real instrumental part of that. The other great thing about self-publishing is that you control the rights and the royalties. You retain all of the rights to your book, and the royalties will be paid directly to you. So, for example, if you publish via KDP on Amazon, I think you get around about 60% of the retail price less the print costs. So typically on a book that costs £10, for example, you're selling it for £10, you'd get £6 less the print rate, and the print rate is usually going to be about £3.50, so you're probably going to get around about £2.50 per copy. That's really loosely based, and obviously it will vary differently depending on whether you've got illustrations, how long your book, etc., etc. So you should expect to receive about £2 to £3 per book. If you publish traditionally, it could be much lower than that. One of my traditional deals that I had for one of my books, I had to sell 1,000 copies before I even made a penny. So the royalties can be pretty poor and not very favourable. So you do get a better deal if you self-publish, for sure. So now, those are some of the pros. Let's look at some of the cons. As I said before, it can be quite lonely. You've got to do everything yourself, and it's a steep learning curve. You've got to get your head around the publishing landscape in general, and that is a minefield. You've got to learn all of the techie stuff to get your book uploaded, to get your book formatted. You've got to learn about marketing. You've got to learn about cover design. You've got lots of stuff to do. It's a really, really steep learning curve, and that can be full of sort of emotional highs and emotional lows, and you can feel quite lonely throughout that process, which is why it's a really good idea to have some kind of writing tribe. So a writing membership. I run a writing membership community. It's really lovely to have that support from like-minded people who go, I've got your back, I know how you're feeling, or have you tried this? That can be really great. And as I've alluded to, there's loads of tech. It's taken me years and years to get to the point where I now feel confident that I will format your book better than anybody else. I will upload your book better than anybody else. But it's taken me years to get to that point. I don't think it's an exaggeration to say the best part of 10 years to get to a point where I really go, I'm on it. I know what I'm doing now. And then even then I'm still learning. So there's a lot of tech to get your head around. The other thing is self-publishing, it isn't free. Technically, it's free. You can upload a book to KDP and it'll cost you nothing. That doesn't mean it should. If you put out a book that's poorly edited, where the cover doesn't reflect the genre or isn't very professionally done, or whether the formatting's all over the place, you're going to discredit yourself quicker than a very, very quick thing that I can't think of an analogy for right now. Self-publishing technically is free. It shouldn't be. If you're going to produce a professional book, then you need to pay for editing, cover design, formatting, any kind of support that you need to get that book out there and make it done well. Even if you're good at editing yourself, you can't edit your own book. I don't edit my own books, and I edit for a living. It's very difficult to read your own work objectively. So although it could be free, it isn't if you're going to do a good job. And there's lots of hoops you have to jump through with that as well. And the other thing is marketing. Now, I've put this as a con in self-publishing, but actually it's a con throughout. I don't mean a con, although maybe that's a Freudian slip. Marketing, no matter how you publish, whether you're publishing traditionally, whether you're using a hybrid publisher, whether you're self-publishing, marketing is always going to be down to the author primarily. A traditional publisher might do a little bit of marketing for you, but to be honest, it's going to be minimal. And you will have heard in previous episodes, I talk a lot about marketing is a long game. It's expensive. It's costly in terms of finance and in terms of time. And a traditional publisher is not going to spend a huge proportion of their marketing budget on an unknown author because it's too risky and it's too time consuming, which is why a lot of celebrities now write books, because the publishers are going, yeah, fine, you've got the platform, you've got the track record, you've got the notoriety, you've got the visibility, we can market you, no problem. The channels are already set up. If you're a new unknown author, no one knows who you are. I'm sorry to burst your bubble. So really, the marketing is a huge part of the book. In fact, I would say it's often a bigger part of the book for self-published authors than the actual writing. You've got to spend time, energy and effort in raising your author profile. You've got to get yourself on podcasts. You've got to grow your email list and get people into your world. You've got to be posting on social media, raising your visibility, raising your profile so people know who the heck you are and where to find you. You've got to be building the buzz towards the launch of your book way before the book is published, way before the book comes out. So, unless you've got a really good proven track record, unless you're already famous, the marketing is really very much going to be down to you. And this can be one of the things that self-published authors find really, really difficult. However, if you commit, if you have a strategy, if you're dedicated to the cause, if you really sort of think about it and get some, help in terms of advice to formulate your strategy, it can be really rewarding when you see that traction start to come, when you start to see that engagement, when you start to see people really interested in what you've written and wanting to hear more from you, wanting to buy more books from you. So the thing about self-publishing, I think mainly is, for me, I think it's more pros than cons. You've got control financially, you've got control creatively, you've got freedom creatively. You can really run the project your way, and you will stand to make more money from that book if you market it well. If you don't market it well, then you're basically opening a shop and not telling anyone the address. I say that a lot, but I can't really stress enough how difficult the marketing can be and how much time and effort you have to dedicate to it if you want people to know who you are. Going to author fairs and events, speaking at libraries, speaking at book groups, going to schools. If you've written a children's book, you really got to be brave and get your book out there, but more importantly, get yourself out there. If people know, like and trust you as the author, then they're more likely to buy from you. So self-publishing, it can be a little bit lonely. It can be a very, very steep learning curve, and be careful of the sharks. Be mindful of the people swimming around in those waters who are not there for your good. Make sure that the advice you get comes from a place that you trust, from someone that you trust. And it might be that you reach out to other authors who say, actually, I had a really bad experience there, but I had a great experience here, or this is a method that's worked for me. I myself got massively duped by vanity publishers right in the beginning of my writing journey back in 2011, and I've learned a lot the hard way. So make sure that you get advice, but check the validity of that advice. Check that the person who's giving you that advice is qualified to do it. Check their referrals, check their testimonials, reach out to people who they've worked with. And here I'm talking editors, I'm talking cover designers, I'm talking hybrid publishers, people who will help with the techie side of self-publishing. Make sure that you do your due diligence. Don't take advice from someone that you don't know or trust or haven't done your research on, really. So for me, I've been traditionally published a couple of ways. I've used hybrid publishing. I've had a terrible experience with Vanity Press. And for me, assisted self-publishing or hybrid publishing was always the best way. It gave me the most help and support, but helped me to retain the most control over my project as a whole. And that was really what sprung me into the world that I'm in now, and doing something that I absolutely love. So just take your time, be brave, find your tribe, find people who are there to help you, support you, guide you, and give you a kind of a bit of an emotional pat on the back when it's needed, because it's an emotional journey, this. Right before you launch, so many of my authors have a massive wobble because you're putting yourself out to the world, and you can feel quite exposed when you do that. But I promise you, the rewards are plenty, and they're not just financial rewards. We don't write books purely to make money, and that would be the worst business idea in the world. We do it for so many other reasons other than making money. It's for fulfillment, it's for creative fulfillment, it's for achievement, it's for satisfaction, it's for visibility, all of those things. It's for passion, it's for personal satisfaction, passion, for a legacy, for all of those different reasons, which are actually, in my book, much more valuable than money. So self-publishing, yes, it's an emotional journey. Yes, it's a steep learning curve. Yes, it can be a little bit lonely, but is it worth it? Absolutely, 100%. If you have any questions about your self-publishing journey, please do get in contact with me, Karen, at mabelandstanleypublishing.com. I'm always happy to hear from you guys, and I'm always happy to help, whether we work together or not. It's my mission to try and be the person I needed when I started out, because I couldn't find that person at all. So if you've got any questions about your self-publishing journey, if you're stuck along the way with your raising your visibility or knowing what kind of processes to use, then please do reach out. I'm always happy to help, and I love to hear about your writing journey and to hear about how you're getting on. So happy writing, happy publishing, and I hope to hear from you all soon one day.